So I come from a family that made me believe that I could do anything I wanted in life. When I was a young boy, they made me a very important promise. They told me that I could achieve all my dreams, I could become anything I wanted, but I would need to fulfill one condition: that I be a good boy. Now, when you're 5, 6, 7 years of age, you don't really know what it means to be a good boy. You kind of have to figure that out by yourself. And there is a place where you actually learn what it means to be a good boy. And that's school. And in school, you learn that being a good boy means to sit quietly and listen, to seek clarification, but never to question. School teaches you that you can have ambition, but not too much. That you can aim to be successful, but not so successful that you will outshine others. And it teaches you that you need to find your own path, but let it not be arts. And that once you find it, you find your place in the world, and then you gotta stay there. And as a kid, I had so many dreams, and I had the perfect playbook to follow. And how hard could that be? I just needed to be a good boy. So I embraced it, and I was a good boy throughout my life. I went to high school, I graduated with honors, and then I got into a very selective university, 10% acceptance rate, and then finally I was lucky enough to finish my bachelor in Washington, D.C., and I got the opportunity to land an internship in the European Union, at the European Union in Washington, D.C., and there I was. Finally, I'd gotten a glimpse of what being a good boy would have brought to my life. I was in a glass and gray office in Washington, D.C., doing important work such as advocating for money from Europe and the United States to get to the right countries, to the right conflicts, to the right crises. But then I started to ask myself some questions. First of all, how were we in Washington, D.C., making decisions on where and how and why to send money to which country, to which crisis? And I couldn't find an answer. And so I started to look for answers. I left my internship and I was a bit disoriented, and I went to law school to look for answers. And after law school, then I landed my first job. And there I was again in all my glory, being a good boy, fulfilling my promise. I was 22 years old. I was making a substantial amount of money for my age, or for any age, as a matter of fact. I was, by any metrics, a successful young man. And finally, there it was. I had fulfilled my promise. It didn't matter that I would wake up every morning with nausea. It didn't matter that I would feel chronic back pain from sitting 12 hours straight on an office chair. It did not matter that I would spend my time looking for legal arguments to defend a multinational corporation that had poisoned its workers by exposing them to asbestos. None of that mattered because I had maintained my promise. I had been a good boy. But yet, there was a question I was asking myself, a very simple yet loud question that was hitting me very hard. And that question was, why? Why, after all this time walking my path and being good, why was I feeling so miserable? Why was I feeling so uncomfortable? And so I did whatever a guy my age, in my shoes, would do at the time. I decided I needed those questions to fade away. I needed them to get less loud. So I got into a relationship. She was from Kenya. And it was a great distraction back then. I decided to travel down to Kenya, and I spent a month there, here. And then all the questions just disappear for a short while. But then I'm back to the office, and the questions are back eating at me. And at that point, I don't know what to do. Until I make an encounter, by pure coincidence, I run into a friend from high school that I'd not seen in a very long time. His name is Nicolò Govoni, and he had just established a school in Greece for children fleeing conflict, unaccompanied minors looking for a safe harbor. I meet Nicolò and he tells me, why don't you come to volunteer with us? I mean, he was asking the guy in the suit to go to Greece and get his hands dirty and volunteer. But at that point, to me, it was just handing over another distraction. And so I say, why not? I go down to Greece and I finally realize what's up with a project like that. There, in the school in Greece, children were just being children. They did not care about funding reports from Washington, D.C., or press releases from Paris, or where the funds and money would go to which country, to which conflict. They didn't care about that. They were busy making leaps from trauma to learning. They were busy finding hope again. And so I get an idea. I realize that during my time in Greece, the questions just start fading. And so I think, well, I could open another school like that. And I tell my friend, if you want to open another school like this, and you want to open another school like this in Kenya, then I will go to Kenya and I will help you open it. So at first I thought that it was just a pretext to go to see my girlfriend in Kenya. But then I realized that whatever we were doing in Nairobi was so much bigger than all of us. In Nairobi, we wanted to establish the first international school offering the IB framework completely free of charge to refugee and vulnerable children. And we wanted to do that, of all places, in Madare, one of the largest slums in sub-Saharan Africa. And at the same time, we were trying to establish a school in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Kolwezi, the world's capital of cobalt, where 70% of the world's cobalt is mined. But let's be honest, it was 2020, 2021, around that time. All schools in the world were closing down because of the pandemic. Our project in Kenya was stalling, and our project in Congo was stalling too. We were not able to get access to the mines of cobalt and copper in Kolwezi. And that's because, as you may imagine, the mines of cobalt and copper are one of the most secretive and secluded places on Earth. There is no interest from people from outside to go there. And so I do, at that point, on top of this, my relationship was in shambles. Our projects were stalled. I had drifted away from my career in Paris. And so I take the only right decision that someone could take in that position. I decide to go down to Congo by myself. And people here were horrified. I mean, I remember my colleagues in Kenya, they were questioning that choice. They were like, hey, you mzungu amechizi bana. And you know what? I did go in the end, and I realized that my colleagues in Kenya were exactly right. It was absolutely crazy that I would go alone to a place like Congo to do what I wanted to do. It was exactly the hot mess that I was supposed to expect. Of course, I was unable to do anything by myself. I was completely stuck. I was completely hopeless until I met a wonderful man. His name was Vital, and he was a child miner in his youth. He spent his childhood in the mines. He knew them inside out, but he got lucky. He had good grades, and he managed to get a scholarship. And after the scholarship, he managed to get a job in international development, a prestigious job. But then he, like me, started to ask himself some questions. He, like me, started to feel uncomfortable. And he, like me, left stability to pursue purpose. Thanks to Vital, we managed to get access to the mines quickly and swiftly, and he knew exactly what we were doing. He was destined to help us and get us into the mines. And both of us make an encounter that changed both me and Vital's lives. We meet a girl by the name of Annie. Annie was tiny. She had colorful braids and a bright smile, and she was spending the whole day breaking stones, washing them, and selling them for a couple of dollars a day. And that's where all our questions completely disappeared. That's when we stopped wondering and we started doing. That's when all our questions turned from question to a command. A categorical imperative to do, a categorical imperative to take action. So we opened the school in Congo. Annie became one of our first students, and then a few years later she graduated top of her class, and then she got an opportunity with a scholarship to study at TEDxStill I Rise International School in Nairobi. And that's where we realized that if we did it in Kenya and then we did it in Congo, there was no reason for us to stop there and not to do it in Yemen, and then in Syria, and then in Colombia, and then in South Sudan, and then in the future in India and in Italy. And we accomplished all that because we asked ourselves one question. Why? So some of you are sitting in your own version of Paris. And maybe to you it feels like comfort. It feels like the responsible and sensible choice to make. And I'm not here to tell you to leave everything and move down to the equator. As a matter of fact, you already live by the equator. I'm not telling you all of that. I'm just asking you to ask yourself, are the choices you're making truly yours, or are they being handed over to you? I'm just advocating for you to do these three things. First of all, to ask yourself why. It all starts from a simple question. Second of all, to listen to your discomfort, to be able to sit with your uneasiness, to be able to listen to it and to understand it. And then third, once you understand your uneasiness, then take action and do something about it. Because in this broken, urgent world where we live in, we need people bold enough to ask themselves why. Thank you.